which will soon be the stage for one of Assassin's Creed Valhalla's flagship features, raiding. With the blow of a horn, your crew bails out of your longship and charges into battle, crashing into the shields of a village's unprepared guards. Wood splinters, blood gushes, and heads drop from shoulders. It's exactly the kind of skirmish you'd expect from a Norseman raid. Raiding feels smaller scale than I expected, but is nonetheless good fun, and a vital part of fulfilling the Viking fantasy at the heart of the game. It's also not the only way to pillage a Saxon settlement. The first time I approached a raiding target in a recent 3-hour hands-on with Valhalla, I actually bailed out of the longship on my own, snuck around the back, and crept from guard to guard, taking them out silently. Stealthing the entire camp was overly easy due to enemies standing perfectly still at their posts, something I hope will be upgraded with patrol paths by the time of full release. But some satisfaction remained thanks to the fact that Assassin's Creed's iconic hidden blade has been restored to full power once again, killing instantly with a generous splash of crimson. Post-raiding party, protagonist Eivor takes part in what is effectively the boss fight version of raiding, Valhalla's siege assaults. This one begins with a Viking variant of D-Day, with landing craft exchanged for longships and machine gun fire swapped out for volleys of flaming arrows. It's in these big battles that Valhalla's combat really shines, despite the rough edges of this work-in-progress build. It's a small upgrade of the system first introduced in Assassin's Creed Origins, but one with enough Norse-flavoured garnish that it feels just right. Active abilities return, including one that has Eivor hurl half a dozen throwing axes into a collection of nearby enemies, and another that's basically a charge and tackle manoeuvre that lasts for as long as you've still got yards left to sprint. That system is nothing new, but enemies now have a stun meter, which when worn down allows you to follow up with finishers such as beating them over the head with their own shield, or swinging your axe up through their chin. Foes knocked to the floor can be stomped on, and if they refuse to fall over, they can be gleefully booted across the battlefield with the Kick of Tyr ability. As you work your way through the assaults, you're able to use a battering ram to break down perimeter fences and gates. There are 3 phases to the attack, and each introduces a new wrinkle of complexity. At the next hurdle, archers fire arrows from wall-mounted ballistas and pour gallons of burning oil over the ramming crew as they batter the gate. On the other side of the door in the final courtyard, the castle's hardiest occupants do their best to scupper your assault. Staying alive through all of this is a little tricky, as there's no regenerating health in Valhalla, nor an HP boosting ability like Odyssey's Second Wind. Instead, you have rations, effectively health potions made up of food gathered from the open world. It means you have to prepare rations ahead of time, or risk running around environments mid-battle in hunt of a mushroom that will keep you in the fight just a little longer. The finale of this particular assault is Ruud, a rival Viking armed with a longsword he can set ablaze and accompanied by a pet wolf. Like with many of Assassin's Creed Odyssey's boss fights, it's in this battle where you can detect some potential Soulsborne influences. Eivor has a stamina meter, depleted by dealing heavy melee damage, dodging, and absorbing enemy strikes with your shield. While light attacks may come for free, in a tight boss arena populated by a walking mountain and a ravenous wolf, it means stamina is constantly in need of attention. Upon finishing the fight, but before you can bury the hatchet in Ruud's skull, your hand is stayed by Oswald, an Englishman ally. He offers the choice to kill or spare your enemy. Personally, I opted to do the sensible thing and slice Ruud's neck open. Unfortunately for me, a bug in the demo meant I had to reload from a different save game in which Ruud is spared, something that later I discover adds a new wrinkle to Valhalla's story. Very much following in Odyssey's footsteps, Valhalla, at least in this showing, has a well-judged balance between light and dark. After the gloomy castle siege, you're treated to a quest set during Oswald's wedding, filled with fun conversations and a drinking minigame where you must down 3 horns of ale without falling over. It's a delightful time, at least until Ruud crashes the party. It appears that Valhalla has ambitions to take the RPG side of Assassin's Creed up a notch. This moment feels like the kind of narrative consequence we'd see in games like Dragon Age. Because Ruud had been spared, he turns up at the wedding looking for vengeance. But rather than Eivor's blood, it's Oswald he's here to claim. At this point, you're offered another choice. Let Oswald fight, or be his champion and kill Ruud on his behalf. I chose the latter option, and while I cut down Ruud for good this time, I wonder what would have happened if Oswald had fought instead. I also wonder if this is not just a one-off event, but a promise that Valhalla is filled with these kinds of consequences and repercussions. Valhalla iterates not just on storytelling, but also the RPG stat system its predecessors added to the Assassin's Creed mix. Alongside the familiar active abilities is a constellation-style map of skills that provide a variety of passive upgrades. Some improve your basic damage and health stats, while others unlock the new stun and finisher combat moves. Together, all of your upgrades increase your global power rating, a numerical indicator as to how powerful you are that replaces standard leveling. Alongside the introduction of further RPG mechanics, Valhalla's world is also significantly more traditional of the genre too. When galloping around it on my horse, or sailing down rivers on my longboat, it was easy to mistake England for The Witcher 3's Velen. This means visually, Valhalla is less striking than Odyssey or Origins, with its practically Tolkien colour palette feeling less fresh than the sands of Egypt or the Mediterranean greenery of Greece. Yet, perhaps because I'm English, I can't help but get a thrill out of exploring just about recognisable versions of my own homeland. It should also be noted that Valhalla embraces British folklore perhaps more than it does Norse mythology. As I explored this small chunk of the world, I came across Black Shuck, a huge black dog that's part of classic East Anglian folklore, as well as two members of the Daughters of Lerion, Gaelic women dressed in skulls with a fondness for sacrificial rituals and the supernatural. As with Odyssey, exploring uncovers optional bosses and other fun activities, although this time it's all a lot more gothic. Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks to be, as is the tradition of the series, an iterative update on its predecessors. If the new approach to RPG design and gear-based progression has put you off the series, this slice of the game indicates that you'll likely be unconvinced by Valhalla's barely altered direction. But the changes presented in this demo suggest developer Ubisoft Montreal may have a newfound confidence in its RPG abilities, and a willingness to embrace more of the genre's toolset. If its branching story points are frequent occurrences, it may be that Valhalla's real innovation comes from player agency in the narrative rather than any mechanical revisions. Provided the game delivers on that promise, my only genuine concern is that the return of the lethal hidden blade hasn't resulted in instantly satisfying stealth. It currently feels underbaked due to those stationary guards, and so needs some extra challenge to make it a worthwhile alternative to combat. Fix that, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla might well be able to both reclaim its lineage and further its admirable RPG ambitions. For more Assassin's Creed, why not check out one of these other videos?